The October rain fell softly against the tall windows of the Meridian Gallery, creating a gentle percussion that mixed with the murmur of well-dressed patrons. Jasmine Reed stood in the corner, her fingers nervously smoothing the fabric of her thrift store dress. It was black and simple, the best she could afford on her barista salary. Though she had spent hours steaming out the wrinkles and making sure it looked presentable, among the sea of designer gowns and tailored suits, she felt like a sparrow in a peacock's sanctuary. Her painting hung on the far wall, smaller than the others, but it was hers. The piece depicted a woman's hands holding a cracked teacup, golden light streaming through the fractures. Oscar Bennett, the gallery owner, had called it hauntingly beautiful. He was the only person in the art world who had given her a chance, and she would be forever grateful for that kindness. Jasmine picked up a glass of champagne from a passing tray. She had no intention of drinking it. It was simply something to hold a prop to make her look like she belonged. She watched other artists mingle confidently with potential buyers, their laughter easy and their handshakes firm. They knew this world. They had been born into it, or had climbed into it with help. Jasmine was still standing at the door, hoping someone would notice her knocking. "Is that supposed to be art?" A loud voice cut through the ambient noise. Jasmine turned to see a tall man in an expensive charcoal suit standing before her painting. His dark hair was slicked back perfectly, and his watch probably cost more than her entire year's rent. Beside him stood a woman with platinum blonde hair, styled in elaborate waves. Her dress a shimmering gold that caught every light in the room. "It looks like something from a community college project," the woman said, her voice dripping with disdain. She leaned closer to read the placard. Jasmine Reed. Never heard of her. The man who Jasmine would later learn was Gregory Hammond. Let out a sharp laugh. "Probably some charity case Oscar is trying to promote. You know how he gets with his little pet projects?" Jasmine felt her face burn. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the polished floor. Several other guests had turned to look, drawn by Gregory's booming voice. This was supposed to be her big break, her moment to prove that someone from her background could make it in the art world. Instead, she was being humiliated in front of everyone who mattered. "The composition is completely amateurish," Gregory continued, clearly enjoying his impromptu critique. "And what is this obsession with broken things? We get it, you're deep and tortured. Try something original next time." His girlfriend, Delilah Price, giggled and pulled out her phone. "I have to post this. My followers will die." She angled her camera to capture both the painting and her exaggerated expression of disgust. Jasmine wanted to defend her work, to explain that the cracked teacup represented her grandmother's battle with Alzheimer's, how beautiful things could still shine even when fractured. But her throat felt tight, and tears threatened to spill. She had worked 3 jobs to afford the canvas and paints. She had stayed up countless nights perfecting every brushstroke. And now, these strangers were tearing it apart like it meant nothing. "Excuse me," she managed to whisper, starting to move past them toward the exit. "Oh my God, is that her?" Delilah's voice rose with malicious delight. "Girl, I am so sorry you had to hear that, but honestly you should thank us. We're saving you from embarrassing yourself further. This really isn't your scene." Gregory smirked and looked Jasmine up and down with obvious judgment. "Where did you even get that dress? Goodwill?" He turned to his girlfriend. "Delilah, take a picture of this." The struggling artist in her struggling outfit next to her struggling painting. It's very meta. Something inside Jasmine cracked, much like the teacup in her painting. But instead of breaking apart, she felt a strange sense of clarity. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory from their last coherent conversation 3 months ago. "Baby girl.
Oh.
People will try to make you feel small because they're afraid of how big you can become. Don't you ever let them." Her grandmother had passed away 4 weeks ago. The funeral had been small, just Jasmine and a few neighbors. What she hadn't told anyone yet, what still felt surreal, was that her grandmother had left her everything. A modest woman who lived in a tiny apartment, who clipped coupons and saved pennies, had secretly been investing in real estate for 40 years. The lawyer's revelation had left Jasmine stunned. She was now worth over $8 million. She had planned to reveal her changed circumstances quietly, to use the money wisely and let her art speak for itself. But standing here, watching Gregory and Delilah mock not just her work but her existence, Jasmine felt her grandmother's rebellious spirit surge through her. "You're absolutely right," Jasmine said clearly, her voice steady now. Both Gregory and Delilah turned to her in surprise. "This isn't really my scene. I'm more comfortable in spaces I actually own," Gregory laughed. "What? Do you own a Starbucks or something?" "Not quite," Jasmine replied. She caught sight of Oscar Bennett hurrying toward them, his face flushed with concern. She gave him a small smile and a subtle shake of her head. "Oscar, could you join us for a moment? I think it's time we made an announcement." The gallery owner looked confused but approached. "Jasmine, I'm so sorry about this." "Gregory, Delilah, I must ask you to show some respect." "Respect?" Gregory scoffed. "Oscar, come on. Why are you wasting wall space on amateur hour when you could be featuring real artists? This is exactly why your gallery is struggling. Bad judgment." Oscar's face reddened, but before he could respond, Jasmine touched his arm gently. "Oscar, remember how you mentioned last week that you were worried about losing the gallery? That your landlord was threatening to sell the building?" "Yes," Oscar said quietly, embarrassment evident in his eyes. "I've been trying to negotiate, but the market value has increased so much that I can't possibly afford to buy it." "Well, I have good news," Jasmine said, her voice carrying across the now silent gallery. Everyone was watching. "You don't have to worry anymore. I bought the building this morning. You have a 10-year lease at your current rate, and I'm waiving the next 6 months of rent so you can invest in renovations." The silence that followed was deafening. Oscar's mouth fell open. Gregory's smirk vanished. Delilah's phone nearly slipped from her hand. "You what?" Gregory finally managed. Jasmine turned to face him fully, her posture straight and confident. "I bought this building, and 3 others on this block, actually. My lawyer tells me you've been trying to acquire this property for months, to demolish it and build condos. I'm afraid that won't be happening. We're preserving art spaces, not replacing them with overpriced apartments." Gregory's face cycled through several shades of red. "This is ridiculous. Oscar, who is this person? Some rich daddy's girl playing pretend artist?" "My grandmother was a housekeeper," Jasmine said calmly. "She cleaned homes like yours for 50 years, saved every penny, invested wisely, and left her only granddaughter with the means to make a difference. I'm not playing at anything. I'm an artist. I'm also now a property owner. And I'm someone who recognizes that my struggles don't define my worth." Delilah had gone pale beneath her makeup. "Gregory, maybe we should go." "No, wait," Gregory said, his tone shifting to something approaching politeness. "Look, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'm actually a major art collector, and I'd love to discuss purchasing some pieces. Perhaps we could arrange a private showing?" Jasmine smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I don't think so. You see, I remember everything people say to me. Every insult, every dismissal, every moment someone tried to make me feel less than. I have an excellent memory." "I was joking around," Gregory insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. "Art world banter, you know how it is. Delilah, tell her we were just playing." But Delilah was already backing toward the door, her social media instincts screaming that this was about to become a viral disaster if she didn't distance herself immediately. Oscar found his voice, a wide smile spreading across his face. "Jasmine, I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't seem adequate." "You gave me a chance when no one else would," Jasmine replied warmly. "You saw value in my work when everyone else saw a charity case. That kind of faith deserves to be rewarded." She turned back to Gregory. "I'm going to suggest you leave now. And perhaps in the future, think twice before judging someone by their dress or their background. You never know who you're really talking to." Gregory's jaw clenched, but he managed a curt nod before striding toward the exit. Delilah scurried after him, no longer filming, as the door closed behind them. The gallery erupted in whispers, and then, surprisingly, applause. Jasmine felt tears sting her eyes again, but this time they were different. These were tears of relief, of vindication, of finally being seen. Oscar pulled her into a hug. I had no idea about your grandmother. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, Jasmine whispered. She would have loved this moment. She always told me that the best revenge is living well and lifting others up. What you've done here for the gallery, for the arts community. Oscar pulled back to look at her. It's extraordinary. Jasmine glanced at her painting on the wall, at the cracked teacup glowing with golden light. We're all a little broken, she said. But that's where the light gets in. My grandmother taught me that. And now, I want to make sure other artists like me get the same chance you gave me. As the evening continued, people approached Jasmine with new respect, eager to hear her story and view her work with fresh eyes. The painting that had been mocked an hour ago suddenly became the most discussed piece in the gallery. Several people made offers to purchase it, but Jasmine declined. That painting was staying right where it was, a reminder of where she came from and how far she had traveled. Outside, the rain had stopped, and through the tall windows, Jasmine could see the city lights reflecting off wet pavement, turning ordinary streets into rivers of gold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. She knew Gregory Hammond wasn't the type to simply accept defeat, but tonight in this moment, surrounded by people who finally saw her worth, Jasmine Reed allowed herself to feel victorious. The girl in the thrift store dress had just bought her seat at the table, and she was only getting started. The Grand Celestial Hotel ballroom glittered like the inside of a jewelry box. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across tables draped in ivory silk, and ice sculptures shaped like swans slowly melted into silver bowls. Jasmine stood near the entrance, her emerald gown flowing elegantly to the floor. This time, there was no question about whether she belonged. The dress was custom-made, her jewelry was tasteful but expensive, and her confidence radiated from within. The annual Children's Arts Foundation Gala drew the city's elite, people who wrote checks with more zeros than most saw in a lifetime. Jasmine had purchased an entire table, not for the social status, but because she genuinely believed in the cause. Her own childhood art classes, free programs at the community center, had been her salvation during difficult times. Jasmine read, "As I live and breathe," a warm voice called out. Roland Fitzgerald approached with open arms. He was a distinguished man in his 70s, with silver hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. "Your grandmother would be so proud of you." Jasmine embraced him. Roland had been her grandmother's friend for decades, one of the first clients who had treated her as an equal rather than just hired help. "Mr. Fitzgerald, thank you for coming. Please, it's Roland. And I wouldn't miss this. I heard about your gallery acquisition." Brilliant move. Leaned in conspiratorially. "I also heard about your run-in with Gregory Hammond. That boy needs taking down a peg or two. Funny you should mention him," Jasmine said, nodding toward the bar. Gregory stood there in a tuxedo that fit him perfectly, a smile broad but his eyes scanning the room with barely concealed desperation. Delilah clung to his arm like an accessory, her silver dress cut so low it seemed to defy physics. Roland's expression darkened. "He's been circling my company like a vulture. Wants me to invest in his new development project? The man has the business ethics of a loan shark." "Tell me more," Jasmine said, genuinely curious. Over the next few minutes, Roland explained how Gregory's real estate empire was built on questionable practices. He bought properties in developing neighborhoods, promised community improvements to get tax breaks, then abandoned those promises once he secured the benefits. His latest project involved purchasing an entire block of affordable housing, displacing hundreds of families. To build luxury condos that would sit empty as investment properties for foreign buyers. The worst part, Roland continued, is that he's running out of money. He's over-leveraged, drowning in debt from his last 3 projects that failed to sell. He's here tonight trying to charm investors into bailing him out. Jasmine watched Gregory work the room, shaking hands, laughing too loudly at jokes that probably weren't funny. Delilah played her part perfectly, taking photos for her social media followers, creating the illusion of a power couple living their best life. "He doesn't recognize me yet," Jasmine observed. "Different dress, different hair, different everything." "Good," Roland said with a mischievous glint. "Let's keep it that way for now." Dinner was served, a 5-course meal that Jasmine barely tasted. She was too focused on observing Gregory's table. He sat with several prominent business people, his gestures animated as he pitched his vision. She watched him pass out glossy folders, likely containing projections and promises he had no intention of keeping. Halfway through the main course, a woman approached Jasmine's table. She was petite, with sharp features and observant eyes, her notebook tucked discreetly into her clutch. Jasmine read, "I'm Penelope Wu with the Metropolitan Journal. I've been following your story since the gallery incident last month. Would you have a moment to chat?" Jasmine recognized the name. Penelope was an investigative journalist known for her thorough exposes on corporate corruption and social inequality. "Of course, please, join us." Penelope sat down, declining the offered wine. "I'm working on a piece about real estate development and its impact on local communities. Your name came up in connection with property preservation. I'd love to get your perspective." They talked for 20 minutes, Jasmine explaining her vision for maintaining affordable art spaces in community centers. Penelope took notes, asked insightful questions, and seemed genuinely interested in the social implications of urban development. "You know who else I'm researching?" Penelope said casually. "Gregory Hammond. Fascinating character. Lots of smoke around his business practices, but nobody willing to go on record. People are afraid of him." Jasmine glanced at Roland, who raised an eyebrow. "What if someone were willing to go on record?" Jasmine asked carefully. Penelope's pen paused above her notebook. "I'm listening." "Roland, you mentioned Hammond's pattern of making promises to communities and then breaking them once he gets what he needs. Do you have documentation?" "I have friends in city planning," Roland said slowly. "I could make some calls." Over the next hour, while the gala continued around them, a plan took shape. Roland agreed to provide Penelope with documents showing Gregory's history of tax fraud and broken community commitments. Jasmine offered to connect her with families who had been displaced by his developments. Penelope's eyes lit up with the kind of fire that comes from knowing you're about to break an important story. "This could be big," Penelope said. "Really big. But I need to verify everything. I won't publish anything I can't confirm from multiple sources." "That's why you're the best," Jasmine replied. As the evening progressed, the charity auction began. A vintage guitar signed by a famous musician, a weekend at a luxury resort, a portrait session with a renowned photographer. Jasmine bid on a few items, winning a package of art supplies that would be donated to schools in underserved neighborhoods. Then Delilah spotted her. "Oh my God. Gregory, isn't that the girl from the gallery?" Delilah's voice carried across 3 tables. She had clearly had too much champagne. Gregory turned, his eyes narrowing as recognition dawned. Jasmine watched his expression cycle through surprise, anger, and then calculation. He stood up, straightening his jacket, and made his way over to her table. "Jasmine read," he said smoothly, as if they were old friends. "What a small world. I was hoping I'd run into you again. I wanted to apologize for my behavior at the gallery. I was having a terrible day, and I took it out on you. That was wrong." Jasmine studied him calmly. The apology was practiced, insincere. She could see the wheels turning behind his eyes. Trying to figure out how to spin this encounter to his advantage, apology noted. She said coolly, "I've actually been thinking about you," Gregory continued, pulling out a chair without being invited. "Your investment strategy is impressive. Buying up properties in emerging arts districts? Very smart. I'm working on a major development project, and I think you'd be a perfect partner. Imagine what we could do together." "I don't think our visions align," Jasmine said. "Don't be so quick to dismiss it," Gregory pressed. "This project is going to revolutionize downtown. Luxury condos, high-end retail, a complete transformation. I'm talking returns of 30 to 40% within 2 years. Roland cleared his throat. "And what happens to the people currently living in those buildings you plan to demolish?" Gregory barely glanced at him. "Relocation assistance is part of the package. Everyone wins, except the families who can't afford to live in their own neighborhood anymore," Jasmine said quietly. Gregory's smile tightened. "That's called progress. You can't stop the march of development. Either you're part of it, or you get left behind," or Jasmine said, leaning forward. "You can develop responsibly. You can build without destroying. You can make profit without exploiting people. Crazy concept, I know. Oh, you're young, Gregory said with condescension. Idealistic. Give it a few years in the real world, and you'll understand how things actually work. Eh? I think I understand perfectly, Jasmine replied. You make promises you don't keep. You take tax breaks meant for community development and pocket them. You displace vulnerable people and call it progress. You're not a developer, Mr. Hammond. You're a profiteer. Gregory's face flushed. You have no idea what you're talking about. Actually, she does. Penelope Wu interjected, her voice pleasant, but her eyes sharp. I'm a journalist, Mr. Hammond. I've been researching your projects for weeks. Would you like to comment on the allegations that you've repeatedly violated affordable housing commitments in exchange for city tax incentives? Gregory stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. I don't talk to the press at social events. If you want an official statement, contact my lawyer. Already did, Penelope said cheerfully. He declined to comment. But I have testimony from 43 families you've displaced. Documents from city officials and financial records that paint a very interesting picture. My editor is running the story this Sunday. Front page. The color drained from Gregory's face. You can't do that. I'll sue you for libel. Truth is an absolute defense against libel, Penelope replied. And Mr. Hammond, I have so much truth. Gregory looked between Jasmine, Roland, and Penelope, realization dawning. You set me up. This whole thing was a setup. No, Jasmine said calmly. You set yourself up years ago when you chose profit over people. We're just making sure everyone knows who you really are. Delilah appeared at Gregory's elbow, oblivious to the tension. Babe, they're starting the live auction. The Bahamas trip is coming up. You promised we'd bid on it. We're leaving, Gregory snapped. But we haven't even had dessert, Delilah whined. Gregory grabbed her arm and practically dragged her toward the exit. Jasmine watched them go, feeling no triumph, only a quiet sense of justice. This wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Roland introduced Jasmine to several Foundation board members who were impressed by her commitment to arts education. She pledged a significant donation and agreed to serve on the advisory committee. Penelope stayed close, gathering additional quotes and making connections with other guests who had. Gregory Hammond's stories to share as the gala wound down. Jasmine stood on the hotel balcony, looking out at the city lights. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and possibility. Penelope joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Off the record. Sure, Jasmine said, accepting a cup. Why did you do this? You could have just ignored him, built your own empire, and moved on. Jasmine considered the question. My grandmother used to clean houses for people like Gregory Hammond. She'd come home exhausted, her knees aching, barely able to afford her medication. And the whole time, she'd tell me that hard work and dignity were worth more than money. But she was wrong about one thing. What's that? Money matters. It gives you power, and power gives you responsibility. If I have the resources to stop someone from hurting people the way my grandmother was hurt, why wouldn't I? Penelope smiled. That's going in the article. On the record this time. Fine by me, Jasmine said. Inside, the band played one final song. Couples swayed on the dance floor, and waiters cleared tables. Jasmine knew that tomorrow would bring consequences. Gregory would retaliate somehow. Delilah would probably post something vindictive on social media. But she had built something real, something that couldn't be torn down by insults or intimidation. Roland appeared at the balcony door. There's someone here who wants to meet you. Says she's a fan of your work. Jasmine followed him inside, where a young woman stood nervously by the bar. She couldn't have been more than 22, wearing a simple black dress that looked borrowed. In her hands, she clutched a portfolio. Miss Rita, I'm so sorry to bother you, the young woman said, her voice trembling. My name is Nina Torres. I'm an artist, and I heard about what you did at the Meridian Gallery. I was wondering if maybe, possibly, you might look at my work sometime. I know you're busy, and I'm nobody, but I thought maybe stop, Jasmine said gently. You're not nobody. Let me see. Nina opened her portfolio with shaking hands. The paintings were raw, emotional, full of color and pain and hope. They reminded Jasmine of her own early work before she had learned to doubt herself. "These are beautiful," Jasmine said honestly. Nina's eyes filled with tears. "Really? Really? Give me your contact information. I want to feature your work at the gallery next month." "Can't afford the gallery fee," Nina whispered. "There is no fee," Jasmine said. "Not for artists who deserve a chance. That's not how we do things." As Nina left, practically floating with joy, Roland put his hand on Jasmine's shoulder. "Your grandmother would be so incredibly proud." Jasmine felt tears sting her own eyes. "I hope so. I really hope so." The evening ended with promises and possibilities. Penelope's article would run in 2 days. Gregory's empire would crumble. And somewhere in the city, a young artist named Nina Torres was probably awake, staring at her paintings, daring to dream that maybe, just maybe, she had a future. Jasmine drove home through empty streets, her grandmother's words echoing in her mind. The best revenge is living well and lifting others up. She was doing both now. It felt better than any comeback speech or public humiliation ever could. The real victory wasn't in watching Gregory fall. It was in being the person who could catch someone else before they fell. It was in using her privilege to dismantle the very barriers that had once kept her out. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, Jasmine Reed went to sleep knowing she had honored her grandmother's legacy in the way that mattered most. 6 months had transformed everything. The Meridian Gallery had become a beacon in the arts community, a place where emerging artists could showcase their work without crippling fees or connections. Jasmine had renovated the entire building, adding studio spaces on the upper floors that she rented at below-market rates to young creatives. The waiting list was already over 100 names long. Oscar Bennett practically lived at the gallery now, curating shows that received glowing reviews in major publications. Nina Torres had sold 3 paintings from her debut exhibition, enough money to quit her night job and focus on her art full-time. The gallery had become exactly what Jasmine had envisioned, a launching pad for talent that might otherwise go unnoticed. On a bright April morning, Jasmine sat in her new office above the gallery, reviewing applications for the summer mentorship program. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the walls covered with photographs of artists whose careers had started in this very building. Her grandmother's picture sat on the desk, a constant reminder of why she did this work. A knock on the door interrupted her concentration. Oscar poked his head in, his expression uncertain. "Jasmine, there's someone here to see you." "I told him you were busy, but he's insisting it's important." "Who is it?" Oscar hesitated. "Gregory Hammond." Jasmine's pen paused over the application she was reading. She hadn't seen or heard from Gregory since the gala. Penelope's article had destroyed him, just as predicted. His investors had pulled out, his properties had gone into foreclosure, and his reputation was in ruins. Last she heard, he was facing multiple lawsuits from displaced families and a criminal investigation for tax fraud. "Should I send him away?" Oscar asked. Jasmine considered. Curiosity won. "No, I'll see him. But stay close, just in case." 2 minutes later, Gregory Hammond stood in her office doorway. He looked nothing like the arrogant man who had mocked her painting. His suit was rumpled, his hair needed cutting, and he had dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. The swagger was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like humility. "Thank you for seeing me," he said quietly. Jasmine gestured to the chair across from her desk, but didn't speak. She wanted to hear what he had to say. Gregory sat down heavily, his hands clasped in his lap. "I'm not going to waste your time with excuses or apologies. I know what I did to you and to a lot of other people. I was arrogant and cruel, and I hurt people for profit. Penelope Wu's article showed me exactly who I had become, and I was disgusted with myself." "Is this the part where you asked me for money?" Jasmine asked coolly. "No. I'm broke. Completely broke. My lawyers took what little I had left. I'm living in a rented room and working at a construction site." He looked up at her, and she was surprised to see genuine shame in his eyes. "I'm here to ask for a job." Jasmine blinked. "You want to work here? I know it sounds crazy. I know you have every reason to laugh in my face and tell me to leave. But I'm good at what I do, Jasmine. I'm good at development and renovation and turning spaces into something valuable. I just use those skills for the wrong reasons. He took a breath. I want to learn how to do it right. How to build without destroying. How to create value without exploiting people. You're doing something revolutionary here, and I want to be part of it, even if it's just hauling trash or painting walls. Why would I trust you? Jasmine asked. Shouldn't, Gregory said bluntly. I wouldn't trust me either, but I'm asking for a chance to prove that people can change. You gave Nina Torres a chance. You've given dozens of artists chances. I'm not an artist, but I am someone who destroyed his life through greed and arrogance. And I'm asking if there's any possibility of redemption. Jasmine studied him for a long moment. The old Gregory would never have humbled himself like this. The old Gregory would have blamed everyone else for his downfall. This broken man in front of her seemed genuinely transformed by consequences. I need to think about it, she said finally. Come back tomorrow at noon. Gregory nodded and stood. Thank you for listening. That's more than I deserve. After he left, Oscar rushed in. Please tell me you're not actually considering hiring him. I don't know what I'm considering, Jasmine admitted. But everyone deserves a second chance, don't they? Some people, yes, but him? He tried to destroy you. Tried and failed. And now he's facing the consequences. Isn't that what accountability looks like? Oscar shook his head but didn't argue further. You have a visitor at the front desk, by the way. Delilah Price. Jasmine groaned. You're kidding? I wish I was. She says it's urgent. Delilah looked different too, though her transformation was less convincing than Gregory's. Her hair was still perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her designer bag authentic. But there was a calculated friendliness in her eyes that set off alarm bells. Jasmine, Delilah gushed, air kissing near her cheeks. It's so good to see you. I've been meaning to reach out for months. Have you? Jasmine said dryly. Of course. I felt terrible about what happened at the gallery. Gregory was such a bad influence on me. I'm so glad I ended things with him before everything fell apart. She laughed, a tinkling sound that felt rehearsed. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about a collaboration. A collaboration. Delilah pulled out her phone, showing Jasmine her social media profiles. I have over 2 million followers across all platforms. I've pivoted my content toward conscious consumption and ethical lifestyle choices. My audience would love to hear about what you're doing here at the gallery. I could do a whole series featuring your artists, drive tons of traffic your way. In exchange for what? Just some photos, maybe a small studio space I could use for content creation. Think of the exposure. Jasmine held back a smile. Delilah, let me be very clear. I remember everything you said to me at the gallery. Every mocking comment, every dismissive look. You filmed me for your followers to laugh at. Now you want to use my work to rebrand yourself as some champion of the arts? Delilah's smile faltered. People change. I've grown a lot in the past 6 months, have you? Jasmine asked. Or did you just realize that being cruel isn't good for your brand anymore? There's a difference between actual growth and strategic repositioning. You're being unfair, Delilah said, her voice hardening. I'm offering you free publicity that most galleries would kill for. I don't need your publicity. The artists here succeed because of their talent, not because an influencer decided they're trendy this week. Jasmine stood up. I think we're done here. Delilah's mask slipped completely. You think you're so special because you inherited some money? You're still that girl in the thrift store dress, Jasmine. You're just wearing better clothes now. You're right, Jasmine said calmly. I am still that girl, and I'm proud of her. She survived people like you and came out stronger. Now, please leave. After Delilah stormed out, Jasmine felt exhausted but strangely energized. The encounters with Gregory and Delilah had clarified something important. Redemption wasn't about forgiveness. It was about transformation. Gregory had shown genuine humility and a willingness to start over from the bottom. Delilah had just wanted to exploit Jasmine's success for her own gain. The next day at noon, Gregory returned. Jasmine had made her decision. I'll give you a job, she said, but not here at the gallery. Gregory's face fell. I understand. Let me finish. I'm acquiring a building in the neighborhood where you displaced those families. I'm converting it into affordable live-work spaces for artists and low-income families. It's going to require someone who understands construction, permits, and development. Someone who knows how to navigate the bureaucracy and get things done efficiently. Gregory looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. The pay is minimal, Jasmine continued. The hours are long, and you'll be working directly with some of the people whose lives you disrupted. They're going to hate you at first, and you're going to have to earn their trust through actions, not words. Are you willing to do that? Yes, Gregory said without hesitation. Absolutely yes. One more thing. This isn't charity. You're going to help me create a model for ethical development that we can replicate across the city. You're going to use everything you know about the real estate industry. But this time, you're going to use it to help people instead of exploit them. Can you do that? Gregory's voice was thick with emotion. I can try. I promise I'll try. Then you start Monday. Roland Fitzgerald will be overseeing the project. He'll be your direct supervisor. A smile ghosted across Gregory's face. I bet he's thrilled about that. He thinks I'm crazy, Jasmine admitted. But he also believes in second chances. Don't make me regret this, Gregory. I won't. I swear I won't. 3 months later, the affordable housing project was ahead of schedule. Gregory worked alongside construction crews, attended community meetings, and slowly began to rebuild trust. Roland reported that he was dedicated, humble, and genuinely committed to the project's mission. Some of the displaced families were skeptical, but others appreciated his efforts to make amends. Nina Torres had her second exhibition at the gallery. This time, major collectors attended. She sold every piece, enough to support herself for a year. Jasmine watched Nina glow with confidence, remembering how that felt. On the evening of Nina's show, Jasmine stood in the gallery, surrounded by art and possibility. Oscar approached with a glass of champagne. "You did it," he said. "You actually changed things." "We did it," Jasmine corrected. "None of this happens without you believing in me first. I always knew you were talented. I just didn't know you were also stubborn, strategic, and occasionally terrifying." Jasmine laughed. "My grandmother's influence?" A young woman approached them nervously, clutching a portfolio. She looked about 18, with paint-stained fingers and hopeful eyes. "Excuse me, are you Jasmine Reed?" "I am. My name is Claire Johnson. I'm a student at the community college, and I was wondering if maybe I could show you my work sometime. I know you're busy, but I thought—" "Stop," Jasmine said gently, the same word she'd used with Nina months ago. "You're not bothering me? Let me see." As Claire opened her portfolio, revealing paintings that sang with raw emotion and untrained brilliance. Jasmine caught Oscar's knowing smile. This was the work. This was the purpose. Not the revenge against Gregory or the satisfaction of proving Delilah wrong, but this, discovering talent, nurturing potential, creating opportunities. "These are stunning," Jasmine said honestly. "Give me your contact information. I want to talk to you about the summer mentorship program." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "Really? You mean it? Really? That's what we do here. We give chances to people who deserve them." As the evening continued, Jasmine moved through the gallery, talking with artists and collectors, making connections, building a community. Through the window, she could see the city lights beginning to glow in the twilight. Somewhere out there, Gregory was working on a building that would house families instead of displace them. Somewhere, Delilah was probably posting photos of herself at some other event, chasing relevance. And somewhere, young artists were creating work that would change the world. Even if the world didn't know it yet. Jasmine's phone buzzed with a text from Roland. The housing project got final approval. "We break ground next week. Your grandmother would be so proud," she smiled, tears pricking her eyes. Her grandmother had cleaned houses for people who barely saw her. Now Jasmine was building houses for people who deserved to be seen. It wasn't revenge. It was revolution, one small act of dignity at a time. Nina found her in the corner, practically bouncing with excitement. "Did you see? I sold everything. Everything. I can actually afford to be an artist now. Because of you." "No," Jasmine said firmly. "Because of your talent and your hard work. I just opened the door. You walked through it." As the gallery closed for the night and the last guests departed, Jasmine stood alone in the main exhibition space. Her own painting still hung on the wall, the cracked teacup glowing with golden light. She thought about that night 6 months ago when Gregory and Delilah had mocked it, and she had felt small and insignificant.